In 2016, Deborah Wasserman Shultzs was head of the DNC, Democratic National Committee Chair. I'm going to let Donna Brazile describe what it was like for Deborah Wasserman Shultzs in charge of it, in charge of the DNC, the edifice itself. This is Donna Brazile writing in her book, when she was hawking her book, Inside Hillary Clinton's Secret Takeover of the Democratic National Committee. It wasn't secret at all. It was if it was a secret that everybody knew. And all the Bernie Sanders supporters, the only thing they could talk about was the fact that they were being cheated. Right here. Debbie Wasserman Shultzs was not a good manager. She hadn't been interested in controlling the party. She let Clinton headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired so she didn't have to inform the party office how bad the situation was. How much control Brooklyn had and for how long was still something I had been trying to uncover for a few weeks. What she found out was that Hillary Clinton, for all intents and purposes, had control of the DNC as if it was the glove of Thanos. Now the catch for this is Donna Brazile, believe it or not, and saying Debbie was not a good manager, is covering for Deborah Wasserman Shultzs. She's telling of a small sin, or telling of a sin in order to hide a larger transgression. The word that Donna Brazile doesn't want to say is corrupt. The word that should be said in description that's more apt is corrupt. She was corrupt. Deborah Wasserman Shultzs wanted Hillary Clinton to win that election. Deborah Wasserman Shultzs gave over the edifice because that's the simplest means of having New York control the political apparatus. Now, this is handing over control of a political apparatus while simultaneously screaming to everybody who would listen that we're partial, we're impartial, we're impartial. This is a fair and impartial process. And if you're saying that it's not fair and impartial, you're a sore loser. You're a sore loser. Shut your mouth. This is fair and impartial. It was not fair and impartial, particularly if one of the candidates is running in the election, and that particular candidate that's running in this election that's supposed to be fair and impartial is controlling the political apparatus. It is by definition not impartial, not fair. Deborah Wasserman Shultzs was eventually fired for being perversely corrupt. And in being fired for being perversely corrupt, she found home in the sinking ship, the burning boat that was the Hillary Clinton camp. Hillary Clinton, of course, failing miserably to Donald Trump, a reality show host with no political experience and no political acumen. The thing is, the reason she was accepted for Clinton is because she was a loyal soldier. She did her job. Her responsibility in this case wasn't to the voters. It wasn't to making sure there was a fair and impartial process. It wasn't to the rules of the DNC. It was to Clinton. I'm with her, and one of the first people that was with her was Deborah Wasserman Shultzs, the person who was supposed to be impartial head of the DNC. Deborah Wasserman Shultzs, in this case, simultaneously was running an election, and that election was against Tim Canova. In running this election against Tim Canova loses this election. People are telling Tim Canova that he needs to check the ballots because there's something funky going on with this election process. And when Tim Canova did what Sanders did not do and went his right, his complete and utter right, to check after the election, because after all, if you don't have the ability to check the ballots, how do you know if you won or lost? This ability to have any elections, our greatest democracy on the planet, as if we like to call it, requires a certain degree of an ability to check the electoral process. We need to be able to check behind the process. Otherwise, how do you know that the process was fair at all? How do you know that the tally is what the tally said it was? Do you believe that the first tally is an act of God, that it's perfect? No. Perfection is not part of the process, which is why we have systems in place to be able to check the ballots after the fact to make sure the person that's chosen was the person that the voters wanted. Tim Canova was not able to do this because the ballots had been destroyed. They broke federal and state law in order to get rid of those ballots, and they wanted to give them a copy. Copy doesn't apply. We need to see the ballots themselves. It is impossible to know whether or not Tim Canova actually lost that election because you couldn't see the ballots and interrogate the actual ballots. Again, broke federal and state law. Nobody will pick up Tim Canova's mantle on this. None of the Democrats wanted to hear it because Deborah Wasserman Shultzs was a creature of the Democratic Party. If you're talking about a swamp creature or drain the swamp, she is one of those creatures that is in that swamp. Tim Canova eventually runs as an independent. Corruption follows Deborah Wasserman Shultzs like a pretty egregious fart in an elevator. Just can't shake it. Everywhere she goes, there it is. The catch of it is we have an electoral process that is adversarial. And in order for us to separate the wheat from the chaff, we like to have these guys bump at each other because there's certain things that come out of the process of them bumping at each other, and they can explain themselves more. They can answer questions that the other person poses. They can go after back and forth. It is an adversarial process. This is something that is part and parcel and necessary in representative governments, particularly if we want to know the corners of the mind of the person who's representing us. I understand that's somewhat of a schoolboy way, and these guys lie and obfuscate and everything else, but debate is the area in which this comes out. The catch of the matter is Deborah Wasserman Shultzs, you would think, needs to be added in a debate, particularly with this thing of corruption following her in this way. This is the same person who said this about the superdelegates, meaning superdelegates was there as a way to prevent grassroots from challenging the elites, essentially to insulate the established order of things from the grassroots.
Hillary Clinton lost to Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire by 22 percentage points, the biggest victory in a contested Democratic primary there since John F. Kennedy. But it looks as though Clinton and Sanders are leaving the granite state with the same number of delegates in their pockets because Clinton has the support of New Hampshire's superdelegates, these party insiders. What do you tell voters who are new to the process who says this makes them feel like it's all rigged?
Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they are running against grassroots activists. We are, as a Democratic Party, really highlight and emphasize inclusiveness and diversity at our convention, and so we want to give every opportunity.
Heard that, right? Whatever she's going to say after that, at the end of the day, superdelegates exist to prevent grassroots from being able to challenge the elites. Now, she may say we inclusiveness and everything else, but the reality of it is the first part was right. The superdelegates are there to prevent or to maintain the established order of things. Now, to this particular person who essentially says, yes, we put these people in place in order to prevent challenge, she herself is being challenged. Go further with this. Back in the 2008 campaign with Barack Obama, how many debates do you believe they had? How many debates? How many debates? If you had a guess, where is it? If you had to guess how many debates, there were 26 debates in 2008. In the 2008 presidential campaign, 26 debates were held, and they proved pivotal in Barack Obama's victory over Hillary Clinton to receive the Democratic nomination. The reason is because nobody really knew who Barack Obama was. Hillary Clinton was the assumed frontrunner. She was the person who they assumed was going to take place because, after all, she had the name Clinton. And in this case, this wasn't somewhat of a tarnished brand, even though it should have been a tarnished brand after everything that Bill Clinton did when he was in office. I mean, after all, Bill Clinton is the one that took money and looked at blacks and Hispanics and workers and said, you have nowhere else to go. Those other people are maniacs. Do you want those maniacs to take hold? If not, you're going to shut up and get in line, and I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to take this money. And yes, I'm going to shift magnificently to the right, groping all the way as I go. Do you know that he had made a deal with Newt Gingrich to privatize Social Security? And if it wasn't for that blowjob, we would have privatized Social Security today. Just saying. The brand wasn't tarnished. It was the debates that separated the wheat from the chaff. It was the debates where people said, I like him, I like that guy. And within the black community, nobody really believed that Barack Obama had a chance of winning that. His blackness was the thing in an odd, almost reverse way that was the prevent. It wasn't that we didn't want him. We did want him, all things being equal. We couldn't necessarily see the big difference between Clinton and Obama, but all things being equal, yes, we liked him, but we didn't necessarily think the white community would accept him, and so we didn't think he had a chance of winning. It was the debates that separated the wheat from the chaff. In the same way that the superdelegates were there to prevent the grassroots from challenging the elites, Deborah Wasserman Shultzs curtailed the number of debates to prevent any chance of somebody else toppling the person who she wanted to win, Hillary Clinton. Ms. Wasserman Shultz's decision to limit the debate schedule of the 2016 presidential primary to six. They went from 26 in 2008 to 6. Because after all, why do you need debates when the person who they wanted to win is already there? Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the nominee. Why do we need debates in this process? Why do we need debates? Debates separate the wheat from the chaff, and the last thing we want to do is have Hillary Clinton lose again. The last thing we wanted to have her lose again. It goes further than that. Any candidate who participated in a separate debate will be banned from any further DNC debates. Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley claimed it is illegally unenforceable for the DNC to impose its exclusivity clause, calling it a very undemocratic way to run the Democratic Party. Indeed, but this had nothing to do with democracy. This has everything to do with them selecting a candidate and them doing the best that they possibly can to escort that candidate to the finish line while pretending we're an impartial process. Mind you, it went beyond that. It went to attacking Bernie Sanders in the media and all sorts of stuff and undermining him within the political process that was supposed to be impartial. After all, she controlled the political process. She controlled the messaging. This person, with this particular strategy, why would this be limited to her role in the DNC? It is not limited to her role in the DNC. She is taking a similar strategy with Tim Canova. This person who Tim Canova had made the point. Tim Canova made this point. My opponent, after taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from Goldman Sachs and other Wall Street banks, have voted to prevent the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau from regulating payday loans and addressing racial discrimination in car loans. Mostly true. Mostly true. Shouldn't she answer for that? Shouldn't it be something that she answers for? After all, we have a political process where we separate the wheat from the chaff. Here's the thing. Let's hear Deborah Wasserman Shultzs herself talk about it. If I can find it. Right here.
Can you speak to the democratic value and importance of debates?
It is important to have debates so that candidates get an opportunity to talk about their ideas.
You heard that, right? Deborah Wasserman Shultzs herself. It is important for candidates to have debates because candidates need to be able to talk about their ideas. Agreed. Complete, absolute, incomprehensibly true agreement. Fantastic. Let's keep going with this. There's more. There is always.
Do you commit to debating your primary opponent?
I'm here.
Can you speak to the democratic value and importance of debates?
It is important to have debates so that candidates get an opportunity to talk about their ideas.
Do you commit to debating your primary opponent?
I'm here to talk about the presidential election.
She believes in debates in the abstract. Should that person debate? Yes. That other person should debate. Should I debate? No, I don't want to talk about that. Debbie dodging Debbie. Let's keep going. There's more. I'm going to play this entire video.
Your challenger, Tim Canova's his name. Let me ask you here. Will you debate your primary opponent before the August primary?
Steve, I'm focused on the two things that I just said.
Well, let me just ask you again.
I've answered your questions.
Hold on now. You haven't answered this one question. You're a candidate for re-election. I think it's a legitimate question. Will you debate your opponent in your race for re-election?
Steve, again.
Your opponent has accused you of not accepting debates. Do you have any plans to debate him in the future? Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm one of your constituents. Nice to meet you. I was just wondering if you are going to have a debate with Tim or not.
We haven't had qualifying yet.
What does that mean? So you haven't agreed to a debate, you don't want to do it?
Florida deserves better. Florida deserves better. Tim Canova has been pretty clear on what Tim Canova represents. I have no idea what Deborah Wasserman Shultzs represents, and I would imagine her constituency doesn't either. The payday lender thing is pretty egregious because these guys are predators on certain aspects of the community. Deborah Wasserman Shultzs has been in the tank for payday lenders. Florida deserves better. Or at the very least, they deserve somebody who can stand up and be accountable to their votes, be accountable to the constituency to which they supposed to represent. Florida deserves better. Debbie, who essentially cheated in order to get Hillary Clinton over the finish line, who Donna Brazile said was a bad manager, and calling her a bad manager in this case was purely there to conceal the larger transgression. It's like somebody coming out saying, Deborah Wasserman Shultzs kicked the dog. Well, really, she didn't kick the dog. She threw the dog down the steps. But kicking the dog is a little bit better than throwing the dog down the steps. So Donna Brazile ended up with the kicking up the dog. Florida deserves better. The same strategy she used in the election to help Hillary Clinton get over the finish line by limiting the number of debates is the same strategy she's using now. In her mind, she's going to win. And because she's going to win, having a debate only hurts her. That's the process. That's the thought in her head. But the constituents should get a choice in this, meaning they should get a look at the person who they're putting back in that office. And maybe, just maybe, those constituents may have the courage to want something different. Dodging Debbie. Once again, just like in 2016, dancing and dodging in order to prevent any level of debates and any level of scrutiny. Because I think she knows Tim Canova would eat her for lunch. I'll end this here. All right, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And you can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Let me make sure I haven't missed anyone because it's probably early at home. All right, guys. Thanks all.